8. The Hanford Site. Located along the Columbia River in Washington State's Benton County, the Hanford Site is a decommissioned nuclear production complex, owned and operated by the federal U.S. government. It was established in 1943 as part of the infamous Manhattan Project, and was home to the world's first full-scale plutonium production reactor. Plutonium produced at the site was used in the world's first nuclear bomb, as well as Fat Man, the atomic bomb that was dropped over Nagasaki. The material was also tested at the Trinity site, where the first nuclear weapon was detonated. The Hanford site was expanded during the Cold War. It grew to include 9 nuclear reactors and 5 plutonium processing complexes, where the plutonium for most of the U.S. nuclear arsenal's more than 60,000 weapons was produced. While many major nuclear technological advancements were made at the Hanford site, the outcome wasn't all good. Most of the nuclear reactors were shut down between 1964 and 1971, and the final reactor was finally decommissioned in 1987. The property was highly contaminated, with over 53 million gallons, 200,000 meters cubed of high-level radioactive waste left behind. Government authorities devised a cleanup plan in 1989, but unfortunately, a lot of troubling damage was already done by then. Official documents have revealed that the activities at the Hanford site released significant amounts of radioactivity into the surrounding area, including onto the land and into the Columbia River. Additionally, it was found more recently that one of the site's underground tanks was leaking hundreds of gallons of radioactive waste into the ground every year since 2010. The pollution remains a problem today, threatening local fish and wildlife and their habitat. For now, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's NOAA Damage Assessment, Remediation, and Restoration Program is evaluating the potential effects of the radiation on groundwater, surface water, sediment, soil, plants, animals, and the environment. The organization is also looking into the possible impacts on public health. This information will help experts determine what the proper next steps are for mitigating future damage, although it's sadly too late to prevent a lot of harm that's already been done. 7. Buckner Building. On the western edge of Prince William Sound in Whittier, Alaska, there's a building called Composite Bachelor Housing Service and Recreation Center. Also known as the Buckner Building, it was built in 1953 to house and provide recreation for 1,000 soldiers. Once nicknamed the City Under One Roof, this sprawling 6-story structure was one of Alaska's tallest buildings for quite some time. Built by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, it contained a mess hall, sleep quarters, movie theater, bowling alley, small jail, and tunnels connecting it to other parts of Whittier. The Buckner Building was strategically located near an all-weather railroad port and a deep-water ocean terminal that stayed ice-free year-round. Due to its accessibility, the base played a crucial role in supplying Anchorage with military supplies. At a time when war with the Soviet Union felt imminent, it was an added bonus that the property's near-constant cloud cover protected it from potential airstrikes. In 1964, a destructive earthquake struck Whittier, inflicting roughly $5 million worth of damage to the town and killing over a dozen people. But the Buckner Building itself suffered no severe structural damage. The military, nevertheless, pulled out of Whittier 2 years later in 1966. And the building changed hands several times thereafter. At one point, there were plans to turn the site into a state prison, but the vision failed to pan out. The Buckner Building fell into disrepair while under the ownership of the surrounding city. Since then, it's remained stuck in a cycle of freezing and thawing, which has caused quite a bit of damage. Meanwhile, the missing doors and windows welcome the outside elements with open arms. The building went into foreclosure in 2016, but its future remains uncertain. According to the most recent updates, it remains fenced off and forbidden to trespassers as it continues to fall further into decline. 6. Memorial Mound Mausoleum. In 1992, A gravedigger named Clyde Booth attempted to capitalize on his dream of providing the public with a unique alternative to traditional postmortem burials known as the Memorial Mound Mausoleum. Located in Bessemer, Alabama, the unconventional mausoleum sat 8 feet, 2.4 meters underground. The facility's visitor area contained a chapel, a computer that guests could use to view photos and videos of their deceased loved ones, and a marble wall where visitors could leave items in memory of their lost loved ones. There was also a room dedicated to selling caskets. Behind the marble wall, there was a warehouse-like room filled with metal racks for holding caskets, which was not open to the public. Coffins were stacked up to 10 feet, 3 meters high, with the lower placements coming with a more expensive price tag. Not many of these slots were ever filled. As it turned out, Booth's idea wasn't as popular as he thought it would be. With less than a dozen burials in 4 years, he ended up facing financial ruin. And in 1996, he decided to close Memorial Mound. Relatives were able to continue visiting the mausoleum for the next few years, but the building was permanently shuttered in 2000. Vandals looted the site for scrap metal, leaving it in disarray, and urban explorers eventually broke in out of sheer curiosity. Pictures of the dilapidated interior surfaced in 2014, showing broken glass, embalming supplies, display caskets that were left untouched by intruders, and decaying and skeletal human remains, including at least one person left in an open casket. These sickening images finally prompted authorities to act. Despite having known of the building's neglected state for some time, they removed the remains of 7 individuals and took them to the coroner's office so that their surviving family members could make long overdue final arrangements. Sadly, by then, some of the graves had been ransacked, with at least one human skull having apparently been taken as a sick memento of someone's trespassing adventure. What would you do if you discovered someone had dug up a family member's grave? Let us know in the comments, and hit subscribe while you're at it. 5. AT&T Microwave Radio Relay Skyway. In the Topanga Ridge region near Santa Monica, California, there's a disused network of 107 microwave towers that once facilitated one of the earliest wireless communication networks in the United States. Known as the AT&T Microwave Radio Relay Skyway, the system used radio signals rather than wires to transmit phone calls. In fact, the first cross-country phone call in the US was made using this very network. At the time, the technology was groundbreaking. Today, it's considered outdated compared to what's currently available. Consequently, hundreds of these old microwave radio relay towers have been abandoned. In addition to the towers in California, there are older and even more outdated AT&T structures throughout the United States. One of them, located in Fairview, Kansas, was part of the company's long-distance communication division, known as Long Lines. This particular network dates back to 1951, and it expanded over the following decades. It became obsolete by the late 90s, at which point AT&T sold most of the towers. According to records, the tower in Fairview still belongs to the company, but like all the others that are still standing, it appears to be deserted and forgotten. 4. LA's abandoned underground tunnels. During the 1920s, the city of Los Angeles built a subway system that serviced hundreds of trolley cars daily. Even as competition from the automobile became an ever-present looming threat. Ridership peaked during World War II, but the city's 5 subway lines were all retired by 1955 and replaced with a street-level bus system. Parts of the abandoned tunnels were filled in over time, but most of them still sit unused beneath the LA streets. They represent just a portion of the city's dark, dirty, and forgotten underground passageways, including 11 miles, 17.7 kilometers of service tunnels that housed several basement speakeasies during the Prohibition era. LA's tunnels have also reportedly been used for transporting large sums of money, and shuttling high-profile criminals to court. One of these labyrinthine networks is rumored to be accessible via an easy-to-miss elevator behind the city's Hall of Records building. Inside, visitors can expect to encounter long, dimly lit passageways filled with iron gates, old machinery, large mysterious chutes, random and sometimes overturned office furniture, and boxes that appear to contain paperwork. There's not much going on in the tunnels beneath Los Angeles today, but the city is as busy as ever above ground. And it's for this exact reason that these networks give off the wildly deceptive impression of a forgotten city whose golden era is long over. 3. Black Hills Ordnance Depot. Built in rural South Dakota in 1942, during the Second World War, the Black Hills Ordnance Depot originally functioned as a storage facility for the U.S. military's growing supply of weapons and munitions. The depot and its nearly 600 munitions buildings were operated by a civilian workforce, most of whom lived in government-owned housing on the 21,000-acre, 6,500 hectares property. Named for the shape of its concrete munitions storage structures, the community of Igloo consisted of homes, schools, a hospital, post office, grocery store, church, theater, swimming pool, and recreation center. In other words, it was like a normal town, except it was located on a sprawling, federally owned munitions depot. With so many young men leaving to fight in the war, the facility hired workers from outside the traditional labor pool of military-aged males, instead turning to women and racial minorities, particularly Native Americans, to fill its positions. Igloo was both a melting pot and a peacefully blue-collar community where residents got along and found common ground despite their differences, which was unusual for the time. The town's population peaked in 1945 at around 4,200 residents. After the war, the staffing needs decreased, leaving roughly 1,800 remaining residents. As the conflict in Vietnam ramped up during the 1960s, the U.S. government cut military spending anywhere it could to fund America's involvement, and the decision was made to permanently close the depot. Some of the structure, including the homes, were relocated or dismantled. The remaining 575 munitions buildings at the site have sat empty since 1967. In 2016, they were purchased by the Vivos Group, which is redeveloping the property into a survival complex. The former storage buildings are being converted into bunkers where owners can seek refuge during a catastrophic event. 2. Culpeper Switch. Built in 1969 outside the small town of Culpeper, Virginia, the Culpeper Switch was a sprawling 135,000 square foot, 12,542 meters squared bunker that was designed to keep banks running in the event of a nuclear war with the Soviet Union or some other apocalyptic type of event. Formerly known as the Federal Reserve System's Communications and Records Center, it housed $4 billion in U.S. currency in a massive single-floor vault. The bunker also contained a highly advanced computer system for the time, which would facilitate electronic bank transfers and other transactions, ensuring that business could continue as usual for the most part, even if catastrophe struck. If the need arose, fortunately that never happened, certain Federal Reserve employees and their families would be dispatched to the bunker. The $6 million structure was equipped with its own air filtration system, power generators, and enough freeze-dried food to feed 400 people for a month. There were only 200 beds, which means that the staff would have to share bunks and sleep in shifts in what's known as hot bedding. The bunker also had a shooting range, a helipad, and cold storage for bodies, in case anyone working or living down there died and it wasn't safe to leave and bury them elsewhere. While the building was technically meant for use during an apocalyptic scenario, the Federal Reserve used it for routing bank transactions for quite a number of years. The public didn't learn about the Culpeper Switch's existence until the 1970s. And once people found out about it, many didn't like the idea of it. They saw it as a large cash stash that would be in the hands of just a handful of people, and not something that would benefit society at large. The Federal Reserve moved out of the bunker in the early 90s and tried to sell it. When it failed to find a buyer, the site was donated to the Library of Congress. It's been repurposed as the National Audio-Visual Conservation Center and houses movie, TV, and music recordings. 1. Burrow Schmidt Tunnel. Located on Copper Mountain among the El Paso Range in California's Mojave Desert, the half-mile-long, 0.8-kilometer Burrow Schmidt Tunnel was hand-carved starting in 1902 by a gold miner named William Burrow H. Schmidt. His goal was to create a passage through the mountains to transport his ore. Schmidt spent 33 years digging through the solid rock, using mostly hand tools and explosives while using a wheelbarrow to remove rubble. He referred to the tunnel as a shortcut, but he was otherwise cryptic about his plans for it. Today, the passageway leads to an isolated ledge that sits over 4,000 feet above sea level. Schmidt originally came from Rhode Island, where 6 of his siblings had died from tuberculosis. By moving to California, he hoped to improve his health. During the construction of his tunnel, he supported himself as a seasonal ranch hand. He resumed digging every fall with the help of his burros, Jack and Jenny. Schmidt never actually moved any ore through the tunnel, despite its purpose. He began hosting tours of the tunnel later in his life with the assistance of a man named Mike Lee, who continued with the tours after Schmidt's death in 1954. The Schmidt and Lee cabins were later purchased by a woman named Evelyn Tony Seger and her husband. The couple moved to the desert in hopes of improving the health of Seger's ailing partner. Unfortunately, her husband passed away, but she continued living at the site until she died at the age of 95 in 2003. The tunnel remains open to the public to this day.
Unexploded munitions. Imagine walking through a peaceful forest, the sunlight reflecting off the lush green foliage, and the serenity of nature all around you. As you tread carefully along a well-worn path, the tranquility is shattered by an unexpected, bone-chilling discovery. Half buried in the earth, barely visible, lies a corroded relic of a bygone era. A deadly, unexploded World War II bomb. Its potential for destruction dormant, but far from extinguished. It's a stark reminder that even in the most idyllic of settings, the past's horrors can haunt us in the present. While World War II ended over 7 decades ago, its shadow still looms over our world in a way that many fail to comprehend fully. Amid the grand narratives of victory and reconstruction, an insidious and often forgotten legacy remains buried beneath the surface, hidden in plain sight. These are the unexploded munitions. Bombs, shells, and landmines left scattered across continents, waiting for an unwitting hand or a misplaced step to trigger their destructive potential. The very weapons designed for wartime chaos have, in post-war years, continued to inflict casualties, disrupt lives, and ravage the environment. In this video, we'll delve into the shadows of history to illuminate the ongoing and underappreciated dangers posed by unexploded World War II munitions. We'll consider some real-life examples of places around the world where these hidden menaces continue to lurk. World War II stands as a testament to the industrial-scale warfare of the 20th century, and its arsenal reflected in the destructive capabilities of the era. There was an array of deadly munitions used during the conflict. From high-explosive bombs designed to devastate cities to incendiary bombs that ignited firestorms, the airborne bombardment during the war was relentless. Even decades later, unexploded bombs are unearthed, remnants of aerial campaigns that once shook the world. Landmines buried beneath the dirt were deployed to deny the enemy access to strategic locations. The war saw the widespread use of anti-personnel and anti-tank landmines, many of which persist today, silently endangering those who stumble upon them. Artillery shells of various calibers and payloads were unleashed on battlefields across the globe, and many of these shells fail to detonate upon impact. They're unstable components buried in the soil, poised to explode at the slightest disturbance. The longevity of World War II munitions as unexploded relics can be attributed to several factors. In some cases, the munitions fuses malfunctioned or were improperly set, leading to failures in detonation. And over time, these fuses can become even more unstable, increasing the risk of delayed explosions. The munitions components, including explosives and detonators, can deteriorate due to exposure to moisture, temperature fluctuations, and chemical reactions with the surrounding soil. This deterioration may render the munitions more sensitive to disturbance. Munitions buried deep in the ground during combat might not have encountered enough force upon impact to trigger their detonation mechanisms. As the Earth shifts over time, these buried munitions can be brought closer to the surface, increasing the likelihood of accidental discovery. Ukraine. On the morning of June 6, 2023, a large part of the Kakhovka Dam was destroyed during the ongoing conflict in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. As the waters receded, an array of munitions were exposed on the previously submerged mudflats. Amidst the muck and silt, remnants of modern air defense missiles, the kind exchanged in hostilities between Russia and Ukraine, coexist with far older munitions from World War II, when the Ukrainian lands bore witness to the fierce clashes between Soviet and Nazi forces. Ukraine's Ministry of Internal Affairs, in an announcement compelling civilians to steer clear of the receding reservoir, disclosed that the region has yielded an unsettling collection of wartime artifacts. Unearthed from the depths of the Kharkovsky Reservoir are not only ammunition from recent conflicts, but also relics dating as far back as the Second World War. These waters, according to the Ministry of Internal Affairs, are tainted with a lethal inventory of ammunition, necessitating controlled explosions to defuse the lurking danger. Oleksandr Chechko, the leader of the Ukrainian demining team, told Reuters that their recoveries included remnants of formidable weaponry, such as S-300 surface-to-air missiles and Smerch rockets, weapons capable of inflicting substantial damage. The ancient armaments discovered in the area serve as reminders of Ukraine's harrowing past. The region bore the brunt of intense combat during World War II, marked by the Soviet drive to reclaim territory from Nazi occupation. The Battle of Dnieper, a brutal confrontation lasting nearly 4 months, witnessed nearly 2.5 million Red Army troops who were determined to recapture lost ground. And ultimately they prevailed, but at a staggering cost in lives. Intriguing yet unsettling stories have surfaced on social media, albeit unverified, featuring videos and images of skulls unearthed from the mud. This region, however, remains perilous due to the presence of unexploded ordnance and the remnants of Russian shelling, complicating any efforts by officials and journalists to authenticate these disturbing discoveries. Germany. Almost 80 years have passed since the ravages of World War II subsided. Yet Germany still grapples with an unsettling legacy: the unexploded munitions that lurk beneath its soil. This hidden danger, remnants of a wartime bombardment campaign, resurfaces with unnerving regularity, posing threats to life, construction, and daily routines. Between 1940 and 1945, the US and British Air Forces dropped an astonishing 2.7 million tons of bombs over Europe, half of which fell upon Germany. These devastating strikes left a trail of destruction, crippling the Third Reich's industrial infrastructure and reducing cities to desolate landscapes. As Allied forces occupied Germany, reconstruction efforts commenced. However, the ominous specter of unexploded ordnance remained beneath the rubble. Up to 10% of bombs that were dropped had failed to detonate, leaving behind a ticking time bomb of epic proportions. The responsibility to disarm these deadly relics, alongside clearing countless hand grenades, bullets, and artillery shells left behind after the war, fell upon the shoulders of police bomb disposal technicians and firefighters. Even in the present day, the threat endures. Germany faces the chilling reality of unearthing over 2,000 tons of unexploded munitions annually. But before any construction project, from home extensions to the national railway network's track laying, the ground must be certified as munition-free. Nevertheless, in recent history, entire areas have been evacuated to remove bombs discovered during construction. These incidents underscore the ever-present danger, like the 20,000 people evacuated in Cologne due to a 1-ton bomb discovery. Tragically, the menace doesn't merely disrupt daily lives, it claims lives too. Since the year 2000, 11 bomb technicians have lost their lives in Germany while attempting to defuse these remnants of conflict. How long do you think it'll be before Germany is completely bomb-free? Let us know what you think down below, and while you're at it, subscribe to the channel. Micronesia. Micronesia, a tranquil paradise in the heart of the Pacific Ocean, holds a hidden peril, an enduring legacy of World War II. As the global conflict raged on, these atolls and islands became the focal point of intense military development, extensive combat, and relentless bombardment. So when the dust of battle settled, Micronesia's serene landscapes concealed a dangerous secret: unexploded Japanese ammunition and US ordnance, remnants of the Second World War. The aftermath of the war left behind a haunting reality: thousands of tons of unexploded munitions littering Micronesia's soil. Both Japanese and Allied forces had established permanent and temporary military bases across the islands, amassing vast quantities of ammunition. These weapons, from small arms cartridges to formidable coastal defense and naval gun shells, were stored in concrete bunkers, open bomb dumps, and ammunition-ready magazines. While some of this ammunition was expended in defense, much remained unscathed as the war's fury left the guns that were meant to fire them inoperable. So you may be wondering, what was the result? A perilous landscape where unexploded ordnance from both Japanese and US forces continues to pose a deadly threat. The question of ownership of these wartime remnants carries significant implications. While some munitions may be considered harmless and encountered in archaeological or historic contexts, others remain alive and perilous threats. The conundrum persists in balancing the preservation of these pieces of ordnance, whether harmless or hazardous, with the need for safety and the protection of heritage sites. The condition of unexploded Japanese ammunition, crafted from inferior alloys due to wartime shortages, poses unique challenges, and the highly corrosive climate of Micronesia accelerates the deterioration of these munitions, making them increasingly volatile. The official recommendation is to leave the ammunition in place and detonate it on site, a method that, unfortunately, risks damaging the historical integrity of gun emplacements. In this complex landscape, clarifying the legal status of unexploded ordnance and establishing ethical and moral guidelines for its removal is imperative. Micronesia, a non-participant in the armed conflict, finds itself burdened with the consequences of a war it didn't initiate. As custodians of the land, both belligerent parties bear a moral obligation to rehabilitate the war-torn terrain and, where possible, remove the remnants of unexploded ordnance that endanger both lives and heritage. Alaska. Deep within the remote Aleutian Islands, some 850 miles from Anchorage, Alaska, a field crew from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers from the Alaska District embarked on a daunting mission to clear and safely detonate remnants of munitions dating back to World War II. Their main focus was on Fort Glenn, a long-abandoned military installation that had silently borne the scars of past conflicts. As the Department of Defense's formerly used defense sites program, this dedicated team embarked on summer field seasons in 2020 and 2021. resulting in the removal of over 2,200 discarded ammunition items and unexploded ordnance. Also, the team recovered 56,000 pounds of metallic debris from this desolate outpost. This formidable undertaking, beyond reducing risks to human health, also aimed to safeguard and preserve the fragile environment. Fort Glen, initially established under the guise of the Blair Fishpacking Company in late 1941, was one of the last military sites in Alaska where the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers executed an environmental restoration project funded by the DoD Military Munitions Response Program. And during World War II, a portion of Umnak Island, home to Fort Glen, served as a munitions disposal site. However, not all ordnance was detonated, leaving behind a hazardous and unstable legacy. The removal process demanded meticulous planning and execution. The team inspected the surface area and underlying soil using planning grids and geophysical instruments to locate potentially dangerous remnants. Then, workers carefully unearthed most buried munitions by hand, placing them into large trenches for controlled explosions. If an item was deemed too risky to move, it was neutralized on the spot. In total, the team safely executed 6 consolidated detonations and 125 blow-in-place events. The project's complexity grew when the team discovered unexpected 500-pound bombs, along with some 20-pound ones. This development required swift adaptation and new strategies to ensure the safety of the team and the preservation of the site's historical integrity. Navigating the extreme weather and logistical challenges unique to the Aleutian Islands posed further difficulties. Sandwiched between the Bering Sea and the Pacific Ocean, Umnak Island, where Fort Glen is located, is accessible only by boat or aircraft. Severe weather, including fog, low cloud ceilings, precipitation, high winds, and clear skies, could arise simultaneously within a few miles. But despite these obstacles, the project's completion marked a significant contribution to the environmental cleanup and safety. Wales. The legacy of World War II continues to haunt Wales, as thousands of unexploded bombs from the conflict potentially still lurk beneath its landscape, prompting emergency services to respond to up to 20 callouts annually. These remnants of war pose a persistent danger to present-day communities. During the Second World War, Wales became a major battleground due to its industrial targets along the Bristol Channel and its undefended route to northwest England. Cardiff and Swansea were particularly significant targets, and the oil refinery at Llandarcy added to the strategic importance of these locations. However, the gaps in Welsh air defences made the country a backdoor for attacks on Liverpool, a far more critical target. And as a result, even more than 80 years later, the sight of Ministry of Defence vehicles responding to emergencies remains common in Wales. Approximately 10% of the German bombs dropped on Wales during the war failed to detonate. So given the 743 air raids that took place over the country, each containing between 5,000 and 30,000 devices, thousands of potentially unexploded bombs may still lie hidden beneath the surface. Today, the threat of unexploded World War II bombs still exists, necessitating ongoing vigilance and occasional callouts to deal with these dangerous relics of the past. Modern technology, including robots, now play a crucial role in bomb disposal, but the legacy of unexploded ordnance from World War II continues to remind Wales of the trials and tribulations of its wartime past. International agreements and organizations play a pivotal role in addressing the enduring threat of unexploded World War II munitions. The danger posed by these remnants of past conflicts extends beyond national borders, requiring a coordinated global effort. These international efforts foster cooperation, provide funding, and facilitate the sharing of best practices to mitigate the threat posed by wartime munitions. Technological advancements have significantly improved munitions detection and disposal. Robotics and remote control devices have emerged as crucial tools in identifying and neutralizing unexploded ordnance while minimizing risks to human operators. Ground-penetrating radar, metal detectors, and advanced imaging technologies enhance the precision and efficiency of munitions detection, allowing for safer and more effective clearance operations. The urgency to address the ongoing danger of unexploded World War II munitions cannot be overstated. These remnants of war continue to pose a significant threat to civilian populations, impede land use and development, and result in injuries and fatalities. The longer these munitions persist, the greater the human, environmental, and economic toll. The international community must remain committed to supporting affected countries, advancing detection and disposal technologies, and strengthening the legal frameworks that govern munitions use and clearance. Only through collective action can we hope to mitigate the enduring peril of unexploded World War II munitions and safeguard the well-being of current and future generations.
North Korea. North Korea is a country that's sandwiched between China and South Korea. It's home to some 26 million people and is roughly the size of Mississippi. North Korea was founded in 1948 by Kim Il-sung and is known as the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK. What makes North Korea unique as a nation is that they're the only communist nation ruled by the same family. Their political beliefs were developed by Kim Il-sung, and Juche is their main philosophy. In a nutshell, Juche means self-reliance. North Korea will fix its own problems and will develop their nation as they see fit. They're not interested in outside help or interference. One reason for this is because they believe they know what's best for North Korea. Another issue is that North Korea was invaded by Japan in 1910, and it was an absolutely brutal rule by the Japanese. It was something that Kim Il-sung never forgot. Kim Il-sung died in 1994, and 4 years later, his son Kim Jong-il took over the country. He ran North Korea until his death in 2011. Then his son, Kim Jong-un, took over the country and has been the leader ever since. North Korea is one of 5 communist countries in the world. The other 4 are Cuba, China, Laos, and Vietnam. Since North Korea is communist, its relationship with the United States has been incredibly rocky. The US is an ally to neighboring South Korea, a free country that's a republic with a capitalist economy. The United States aided South Korea from 1950 to 1953 during the Korean War. North Korea attempted to unite Korea by force, but the war ended in an armistice. That means a truce ended the fighting, and the war isn't technically over. Both Koreas are divided at the 38th parallel. The demilitarized zone, or DMZ, that divides them is under constant surveillance by both sides. The DMZ is heavily fortified and is next to impossible to cross in certain locations. There's a famous spot at Panmunjom where North Korean forces stare down US and South Korean forces. Since the armistice, relations with the United States and South Korea have been tense. North Korea has violated the armistice many times, which isn't surprising for a nation built on deceit and mind-boggling propaganda. North Korea has attempted to be a secretive nation, but their lies and problems are starting to get exposed by the rest of the world. Leadership is ineffective. What we know about North Korea is that the country is run as a cult of personality. This is an ideology where you take a leader and boost them to a godlike status through heavy propaganda. They want their people to know the myths and not the truths about their leaders. Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il, and Kim Jong-un are viewed respectively as the great leader, dear leader, and the supreme leader. Their lives have been mythicized by indoctrinating the people of North Korea. Kim Il-sung was said to have been sent by the gods to reunify Korea. It's also a law in North Korea to have images of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il in your home. These pictures are not meant to be damaged, as they're considered the most sacred items in every household. North Korea's government and press is highly critical of the United States and anything Western. However, Kim Jong-un was educated in Switzerland and is a fan of Western culture, especially basketball. His father, Kim Jong-il, reportedly imported just under $1 million worth of Hennessy cognac per year. And if you're wondering, Hennessy is a Western company based in France. And Kim Jong-un is just as big a fan of cognac as his father. The United States had at one time a list of items that companies weren't allowed to sell to North Korea. This included luxury cars, pianos, yachts, and ski-doos. But today, the elite in Pyongyang, the country's capital city, have the best cars and own imported luxury goods. That's just the tip of the iceberg, though, when it comes to North Korean lies versus the real men who run or have run the country. North Korea is communist and is opposed to capitalism and all of its so-called trappings. While the leaders live in luxury, the people live incredibly difficult lives that are run by fear. They are desperate for cash. Countries need to make money to survive, but North Korea has faced sanctions and trade embargoes. So they heavily rely on China for importing and exporting goods. More recently, though, North Korea has taken drastic measures to bring in cash. There's a secretive office known as Office 39 in North Korea. Their goal is to bring in foreign currency to pay for the lavish lifestyle of the country's dictator, Kim Jong-un. And it's believed that Office 39 brings in roughly $1 billion of revenue each year. Office 39 has been involved in criminal activities around the globe. They've developed counterfeit currency, manufactured illegal drugs, and have ties to human trafficking. And additionally, some items created in North Korea were allegedly stamped with "Made in China" labels to avoid any kind of sanctions. North Korea also sells weapons to foreign countries like Egypt, Iran, Somalia, and Ethiopia. The country has also joined in the world of cybercrime. This is an interesting step by a country that takes an extreme view on keeping its people in line. Do you think there's a chance that North Korea could be liberated in the near future? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. And while you're at it, subscribe. Fear and prison camps. North Korea loves to promote itself as a workers' paradise where everyone lives comfortably. They claim that there are numerous wonderful jobs and there's plenty to eat. But it's all a lie. North Korea runs on fear. And the main method of keeping the people in line is their network of prison camps. There are weekly propaganda meetings in towns and villages that are mandatory. Those who don't attend are reported to the authorities. Neighbors are encouraged to spy on each other, and it's said that 1 in 3 North Koreans will secretly report someone they know over the course of their lifetime. How crime is handled in the country is extreme. Criminals are punished, but so are their families. North Korea has a system called 3 generations of punishment, where 3 generations of a family are imprisoned, and some of these families will live out the rest of their lives behind bars. There are an estimated 200,000 people in these camps, and the government continues to build new facilities. Those that are sent to these camps in North Korea are viewed as enemies of the state. Some people who are sent to these camps are given very little food, and they're forced to eat insects and rodents to survive. Jobs also vary in these camps. Some prisoners work as farmers, while others work in mines. But there are those who've been used as slave labor to build nuclear test facilities. Perhaps the most shocking information about these camps is the brutality that goes on within them. Guards are taught to treat prisoners as if they're not human. Barbaric tactics are used, and one camp reportedly had so many deaths per year that the guards were asked to be less hostile toward the prisoners. And what's even more horrible is that these camps don't just hold men and women, they're also filled with innocent children. Some have escaped these prisons and have shared their stories with the outside world. Guards have even escaped and shared their horrific stories as well. One guard explained in a 2006 National Geographic documentary that he had made a simple mistake with an announcement on a PA system. He knew he'd be punished, so somehow he managed to crawl under an electric fence and avoid a minefield in order to seek freedom in South Korea. Thousands of North Koreans attempt to flee every year. Their plan is to cross the border into China. These people are willing to make the ultimate sacrifice for freedom. China isn't the final step toward freedom, though. They must work with someone to get them out of China and to South Korea for asylum. It's an incredibly difficult situation with no safety guaranteed. North Korea has dissenters in the government, but Kim Jong-un has eliminated those he views as problems. People in North Korea know full well that any form of rebellion would be crushed by any means necessary. It's the sheer brutality of the North Korean government that keeps them in power. They rule with fear, and they use media and propaganda to keep everyone in line. Media. Apparently, the leadership of North Korea does nothing wrong. They're always working for the people. News of Kim Jong-un visiting factories or towns is always on the television or broadcast on the radio. And one organization even cited Kim Jong-il as a predator of press freedom. And his son, Kim Jong-un, has continued that role. Not only does North Korea control the media, but they also have a firm grip on what can and cannot be filmed in the country. It's considered political treason if you're caught filming everyday life. The rules are so severe that one could be imprisoned for life if found guilty of this crime. Citizens in North Korea also don't have access to the internet. Whatever information they receive comes directly from the government. And in the past, speeches by Kim Jong-un have played on a loop for months in North Korean towns. The North Korean media has twisted the truth. They've told their citizens that the United States started the Korean War. Citizens in North Korea are also told that the US wants to enslave them. Defectors living in South Korea have smuggled thumb drives into North Korea. These thumb drives include movies and television shows. North Koreans have exposure to the Western world by having access to these shows. So, laptops and radios have been smuggled in as well. If you purchase a television or radio in North Korea, they've been programmed only to pick up North Korean-controlled channels. But those that are smuggled in are able to get channels that aren't approved by the government. The North Korean government has tried cracking down on these items being brought into their country because they allow citizens to know the truth about their leaders. And the government is frightened, to say the least. An educated public is what they fear the most. The majority of defectors were inspired by watching these videos from outside North Korea or even hearing radio broadcasts from South Korea. There's a channel in Seoul, the capital of South Korea, run by North Korean defectors. The North Korean government has cracked down on the possession of DVDs, thumb drives, radios, and laptops. They've even executed people for watching television or movies from foreign countries. The risk is worth it, though, for many North Koreans because they're hungry for the truth. What's odd about the crackdowns is that the elite who live in the capital of Pyongyang have personal computers and access to the internet. North Korea reluctantly allowed cell phone usage in their country for the elites as well. Famine and starvation. A famine killed roughly 1 million North Koreans in the 1990s. But some estimate that the famine could have killed 2 million people. The food shortage was mainly due to erosion and drought. North Korea doesn't have much arable land. Plus, they're susceptible to natural disasters. However, the impact of that famine is felt to this very day. The food shortages have persisted, and a vast majority of North Koreans don't have enough food to eat. There are even orphan children living on the streets. They barely manage to survive, and even pick through trash for food scraps, while others resort to stealing and begging in the streets. North Korean television makes it seem like everything is okay, showing well-stocked grocery stores to the country's citizens. They also show the production of food and drink. North Korea paints itself as the land of plenty. But what's even more bizarre is that department stores in Pyongyang are filled with furniture, clothing, and food. However, they're not really for sale. In reality, it's a facade for visitors. The truth is that some 11 million people in North Korea are considered malnourished, impacting 1 in 5 children in the country. These children are considered stunted in their growth. And not only has this had an impact on physical growth, but cognitive growth as well. People in North Korea don't have adequate access to clean water or even medical care. The hospitals that are available may not have the equipment or medication for their patients. Also, power outages are common in North Korea, which adds to the humanitarian crisis. But the government has refused to admit there's a problem. And at times, they also refuse help from the outside world. Conclusion: North Korea is viewed as a hermit kingdom. Although they're isolated, a great deal has been learned from those that have visited and studied the country. They're an illusion of prosperity, but North Korea is failing its people in many ways. It's the common North Korean that's left to fend for themselves, while the elites have everything they want. They have food, luxury items, and things that are forbidden to ordinary citizens. Those who aren't the elite are struggling to get food or find access to clean water. So, in a nutshell, it's a very difficult life for North Koreans. However, the more information that gets out about North Korea allows outsiders to fully understand what happens in the Hermit Kingdom. What did you find fascinating about this video concerning North Korea? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.